And then, of course, we get to the hurricanes. This is a picture of Rita. Hurricanes are entirely natural events. They are part of life living on the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic coast. But hurricanes are being exacerbated by sea level rise because the higher the sea level, the more water there is for hurricanes to push on shore, right? Now, I want to be clear about something. This is a picture of our season last year. This is when we had those 3 hurricanes in a row, which was absolutely insane. You remember this? Yes, I know last season had an unprecedented number of hurricanes. But if we look over, not the tree, but the forest, we are not seeing a trend towards more hurricanes. We do not see any long-term trend in hurricane numbers. And if you look at the physics of why hurricanes happen, we do not expect any more hurricanes in the future. What we expect is some years we'll have only a few, other years we'll have a ton. That's the way it's always been, and that's exactly what we expect for the future. Why is that so important? Because a lot of people will say, oh, you scientists are always saying there's going to be more hurricanes just based on 1 year. No, for the record, we do not expect the number of hurricanes to change hardly at all. Even though we will have very bad years, but then we'll have some not so bad years. But there's a lot of factors changing that affect how bad the hurricane is. Remember what I said, we care about climate change because it what? It exacerbates the risks we already face today. So here are 6 ways that climate change and a warming planet is exacerbating the risks associated with naturally occurring hurricanes. Number 1, warmer air, more water evaporates, along comes a really, really giant big storm called a hurricane. It sweeps up that water and dumps it on us. Precipitation rates associated with hurricanes are going up. For a given hurricane, we're getting more rainfall associated with a given hurricane today than we would have 50 or 100 years ago because it's warmer and more water is evaporating. Where do hurricanes get their energy from? This picture of Rita is overlaid over sea surface temperature. Hurricanes are a very unique type of storm, tropical cyclones and typhoons also. They're a very unique type of storm because they get their energy from the ocean. As soon as they go over land, it's like they've unplugged from the wall. Sometimes they plug back in, like Harvey. But once they've lost their connection to the ocean, they have lost their connection to their power source. How is this related to a warming planet? Well, you remember back here when we were talking about the teeter-totter or the seesaw, and remember I talked about how much extra heat was going into the atmosphere versus the ocean? 90% of the extra heat being trapped by this blanket that we're wrapping around our planet, over 90% of it is going into the ocean. And where do hurricanes get their energy from? Warm ocean water. So what is our second reason why? Our second reason is that hurricanes are intensifying faster and they are getting, on average, stronger because there's more energy from the ocean. The ocean is giving them steroids. Hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico are intensifying on average 25 hours faster than they were 30 years ago. And more of them are reaching category 3 or 4 or even 5 status, whereas 50 or 100 years ago, they might have stayed at category 1 or 2. Here's a brand new result that just came out. Hurricanes on average are traveling slower these days. Why does that matter? Because the longer it stays in one place, the more time it has to dump on us. Now, Harvey followed a really unusual pathway, right? And a lot of its impacts were due to the pathway, and as far as we can tell, the research isn't totally conclusive, but as far as we can tell, the pathway was probably pretty much bad luck. But it was very slow, and we know that there is a long-term trend across all hurricanes to be a lot slower these days, which is not good news. They're also getting bigger, and as I mentioned before, sea level is rising, so in other words, there's more water available for the storms to push onshore. So far we know, there's been a couple of scientific studies already published on Harvey, and so far we know that it is likely that human-induced climate change, warming, made Harvey 3 to 3.5 times more likely than it would have been 100 years ago. Today, there is a 1% chance of a Harvey every year. That's not so good, is it? Before the end of the century, if we continue on our current pathway, it could be an 18% chance every year. The 3-day rainfall total was likely enhanced by about 15% compared to if the exact same storm had happened 100 years ago. And the total rainfall was most likely enhanced by about 40% compared to if the same storm had happened 100 years ago.